The Sound and the Fury. This article has been written by Halle Bracken. The Sound and the Fury novel by William Faulkner, published in 1929, that details the destruction and downfall of the aristocratic Compson family from four different points of view. Faulkner's fourth novel, "The Sound and the Fury", is notable for its non-linear plot structure and its unconventional narrative style. Structure: "The Sound and the Fury" is divided into four sections. The first three are presented from the perspectives of the three Compson sons: Benjamin "Benji" born Maury, the idiot; Quentin, the suicidal student; and Jason, the failed businessman. The fourth section has a third-person, omnipresent narrator. All but the second section are set in fictional Yoknapatawpha County, Mississippi in April 1928. The four sections, despite their formal differences, overlap in important ways. In essence, they tell the same story, that of the elusive Compson daughter Candice Caddy, who was divorced by her husband and disowned by her family after it was revealed that her child Quentin, Miss Quentin, named for her uncle, had been conceived out of wedlock. When the disgraced Caddy left the Compson household in 1911, she did not take her daughter. Miss Quentin remained with the family to be raised as a Compson. Although her presence is pervasive throughout, Caddy does not actually appear in the novel. She is reconstructed through the memories of her three brothers, each of whom remembers and relates to her in a different way. Synopsis: the events of the first section of "The Sound and the Fury" take place some 17 years after Caddy's departure. The first section is notoriously difficult to read. Its narrator, Benji, has an intellectual disability. The precise character of his disability is not known. He is sometimes called a loony, or more commonly an idiot. Evidently, his disability affects his ability to speak. He communicates by moaning, and to reason. It also distorts his sense of time such that he cannot distinguish between the past and the present. Benji experiences all time as the present and thus narrates all events, including and especially memories of past events, as though they occur in the present. Unbeknownst to him, the events he narrates as the present actually span a 30-year period from 1898 to 1928. Benji's section opens on April 7, 1928. In the first scene of the novel, Benji and his caretaker, Lester, search for a lost quarter near a fenced golf course. Benji, following Lester, climbs through a break in the fence and gets caught on a nail. The sensation reminds him of an earlier time, 1902, when Caddy uncaught him and led him through the fence. This memory provokes another. Benji remembers visiting a cemetery to see the graves of his father and brother 1912 or 1913. A nearby golfer's call for his caddy recalls more memories of caddy. Benji remembers caddy's wedding 1910 and caddy's leaving 1911, and also the sight of caddy's muddy underwear on the day of his grandmother's funeral. In the present action, Benji and Lester return to the Compton house. There they see Caddy's daughter, Miss Quentin, embracing a boy on a swing. Benji remembers seeing Caddy embracing a boy on the same swing some time ago, 1908 or 1909. For a moment, mother and daughter become indistinguishable to Benji. Then Miss Quentin sees and snaps at him as Benji enters the Thompson house. His thoughts turn to his castration several years earlier and to the events leading up to the loss of Caddy's virginity 1909. His section ends in his room 30 years before it began, with the memory of Caddy holding him on the night she muddied her underwear 1898. The second section commences on June 2, 1910, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where its narrator, Quentin, attends Howard University. Although Quentin has no intellectual disability, Quentin's section, like Benji's, oscillates between the past and the present. The actions of the present here, 1910, are Quentin's as he prepares to commit suicide. Quentin's preparations are partly practical and partly symbolic. They include breaking his grandfather's watch, packing up his belongings, writing letters to his loved ones, purchasing weights, 2 6-pound flatiron with which to drown himself, and visiting the nearby Charles River Bridge, where he will eventually commit suicide. Quentin presents actions are set against his memories of key events in his life, most of which involve Caddy or Caddy's lovers. A few memories predominate: the memory of the night Caddy lost her virginity to Dalton Ames, 1909; the memory of his confrontation with Dalton upon the discovery of Caddy's pregnancy, 1909; the memory of his meeting Caddy's fiancée, the banker Sidney Herbert, at whom Caddy marries, 1910, despite her pregnancy by another man; and the memory of a conversation with his father, in which Quentin claimed he committed incest with his sister, though he did not, 1910. It is implied that Quentin's memories, and these four in particular, compel his suicide. Quentin's suicide is not narrated. His section ends as he walks out of his dorm. The third section of the Sound and the Fury returns to Yoknapatawpha country in the year 1928. This section, Jason's section, is set one day before the first, on April 6, 1928. Unlike the previous two, Jason's section is straightforward and, for the most part, linear. It, chroni- it chronicles his present activities and interactions both at the Thompson house and the farm supply store where he works. The focal point of his narration is his 17-year-old niece, Miss Quentin, who, as Jason describes her, is very much like her mother, headstrong, rebellious and promiscuous. Jason disdains Miss Quentin and she him, and yet he realizes on her for money he relies on her for money. Each month, Caddy sends Miss Quentin $200 check, which Jason intercepts and keeps for himself for nearly 15 years. Jason has kept up this scheme undiscovered until April 1928, when Caddy sends a money order requiring a signature in place of a check, and Miss Quentin at last learns about her uncle's subterfuge. Still, Jason withholds the money. The fourth section of the novel picks up on April 8, 1928, 2 days after Jason's section and 1 day after Benji's. The fourth section is narrated in the third person and focuses primarily on Dilsey, the Compson's black servant. On the morning of April 8, the author narrator observes Dilsey performing her chores as usual in the Thompson house. As she prepares breakfast, Dilsey talks to Lester, who tells her that someone broke into Jason's bedroom the night before. Moments later, it is discovered that Miss Quentin not only broke Jason's window but entered his bedroom, found her mother's money, stole it back, and fled the house. Jason, furious, goes to chase her but ultimately fails to catch her. In Jason's absence, Dilsey, Lester, and Benji attend Easter service at Dilsey's church. The visiting minister preaches about redemption, and Dilsey, thinking of the Thompsons and the events of the morning, begins to cry. She reflects, I have seed D first and D last. I seed D beginning and now I sees D ending. Dilsey's words foretell the end of the novel. Soon after, Faulkner brings it to an uneventful, inconclusive close. An appendix An appendix to the novel, published in 1946, details the fates of the surviving Thompsons. According to the appendix, Benji was committed to an asylum in 1933. Jason moved into an apartment above the supply store, and Caddy moved to Paris, where she lived at the time of the German occupation of France, 1940-44. Neither Caddy nor her daughter returned to Yoknapatawpha County.